So we are in Hannibal Part 21 by HistoryMarche. This is the Siege of Syracuse. Last time we covered Hannibal's exploits against, taking Tarentum, which was just amazing. Again, I've said this plenty of times before, and I'm not done glazing my boy Hanny. Hannibal is my favorite military commander of all time. Love him way more than Napoleon, Caesar, or Alexander. It's just Hannibal is my boy, and I really love learning about this man. With that said, since this is going to take place in Syracuse, it doesn't seem like this is going to focus on Hannibal. It seems like it's just going to focus on Syracuse. And last time we were there, the pro-Carthaginian side was getting its butt kicked. So I'm assuming this is where Rome takes Syracuse, and at least that's what I'm assuming. Let's find out, shall we?
Two Syracusan veterans of his army, Hippocrates and Epicydes, took command of the armed forces in Sicily. The genius of Archimedes has been utilized to overlook the city's defenses he was commissioned to build years ago by its deceased King Hero II. Swarms of laborers and engineers put the finishing touches to his contrivances as the legions and fleet approach, the Roman navy sailing ominously into the port under the command of Proconsul Marcus Claudius Marcellus, while Appius Claudius Pulcher marches the land forces into place on the rise by the outskirts of the outer walls. With their armies hardened and well supplied, Marcellus and Appius are confident that the result will be hard fought, but sharply in their favor. All that awaits is the call of the trumpets, the invocation of the gods, and the ancient city of Syracuse, so venerable it was founded just 2 decades after Rome, will ring with the sound of war.
Yeah, this is a wrap. Obviously, I do know of Archimedes, who he mentioned, renowned for creating contraptions that helped in this siege. Obviously, I think the famous story goes is that he was drawing circles. He was a mathematician, I believe. And yeah, the oldest memory I have of this guy is when I was a child, single digits, and I think a teacher told me about this guy to try to get me into math and why it's cool. I never excelled at math. I that's why I became an English major. Cause math ain't my thing, nor is science, unfortunately. So I'm really happy throughout my college years I never had to take a math or science class. Well, technically I had to take a few just for the credit, but only 3. So 2 sciences, 1 math, so not the worst, but yeah, either way. I think the story goes he was drawing something. The Romans came in and he was like, "Leave me to my circle, it's Roman," and the Romans just kill him. And obviously we're no stranger to Marcellus. Marcellus alongside, Scipio, the Scipio family in general in this era, and Fabius Maximus, one of the competent Romans. Like I said, the Romans had so many competent people in their camp, so we know Marcellus, he's got this in the bag. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see the process of the taking of Syracuse. I always knew the result and whatnot, but it'll be interesting seeing how this goes.
The Roman camp is situated at Olympion, and from there the attacking ground forces of perhaps 2 legions plus auxiliaries move forward toward the Hexaplon Gate. Meanwhile, in the Great Harbour, 60 quinqueremes are led by a vanguard of 8 ships, lashed together in pairs and then mounted with waterborne siege towers. These gigantic sambuca, as such constructions are called by the men, is the secret weapon that Marcellus and Appius trust will allow their marines to cross the Acradina wall in the harbour and overcome the defenders behind. Marcellus's legionaries are not just determined. Many of them are veterans of the armies defeated by Hannibal, who subsequently fled to Sicily. Begging Marcellus for mercy and a chance to prove themselves, these deserters have joined the ranks in spite of the Senate's disapproval, not only bolstering Rome's Sicilian forces at a time when the great majority of the Republic's resources were directed elsewhere, but also providing Marcellus's existing cohorts with a strong incentive to show their superiority and outwork the disdained new arrivals. While the fleet sails into the great harbour, the ground forces see the defenders on the wall on both sides of the gate and prepare themselves for the looming trial. When the first bows are raised and a volley of arrows launched toward the oncoming Romans, those at the front form a testudo, while others come from behind, hauling the siege ladders. Additional legionaries hold up shields to protect the carriers. All so far is going to plan. The legionaries steel themselves for when they will climb the ladders once they are in place and fight their way onto the wall, stabbing and swinging their javelins back and forth to open the way. Roman archers and slingers launch their missiles to clear the stockade for the attackers. The legionaries shout to one another and stoke each other's confidence, some of the braver men putting their heads out from under the shields and shaking their hasta spears in the air. At first, no one is exactly sure what happens next. There is a sound like a heavy rope being swung through the air, and then one of the testudo units suddenly disappears.
Holy crap.
Not every man is initially aware of the threat. Even those at the rear lines are unsure what has happened. Most are still hunkering beneath their shields. But the sound repeats, and then another of the testudos is obliterated, blown into pieces as though some kind of divine hand reached down and swiped it from the battlefield.
Yeah, I hope I got the Archimedes thing down right in the intro. If not, I'm gonna sound like a complete idiot. Again, famed historian here. I'm not. I'm sorry, I'm still not over that one guy saying I'm a historian. I'm like, nah, dude, I'm not. Yeah, I'm really not. But, yeah, if I am correct about the Archimedes thing, and I didn't get that wrong in the beginning, and attribute it to a completely different person, then yeah, I had heard that he created inventions to help with the siege, as I mentioned earlier. I think one was like a mirror against ships, like to burn them. Again, I never looked too deep, but that's what I heard offhandedly. So, I'm assuming this is one of them. Like, Archimedes was a Greek, I believe, as well. So again, the Greeks, man, they are really intelligent people. And yeah, just obliterating entire things. Elevating the siegecraft of the situation, you know?
The legionaries peer through gaps in the shield walls, looking forward onto the palisades for the source of these extraordinary actions, but they remain unseen, hidden. This adds to their growing apprehension that something is wrong. Another testudo crashes and explodes. Then a new sound joins that of the pulsing whip. It's as though the legionaries are surrounded by rattling vipers, some of them even looking down at their collegae boots to avoid a bite. When they look up again, the first of the arrow bolts cuts through the shields and wrenches into the flesh of the men behind them. It is followed by a hailstorm of similar weapons. Those men in testudo who are not blasted by the strange, whirring missiles are shredded by the evil arrows that are shot with such force by a concealed enemy that they can run through shields and bone and even paralyze a second man after eviscerating the first.
Wow, that's so terrifying. Like, you know, I guess, like, this is... You know, it's kind of like when you're marching and then a freaking cannon fires at you. You know, like, just seeing entire, units get wiped out by one well-placed hit, and you not knowing where it's coming from and where it's gonna strike next, that's anxiety-inducing. Like, I'm really liking the build-up to it, because it's like, what the heck? And like, you're almost in the dark with the Romans. What is this contraption? You know, killing everyone. Wow.
The Roman line comes to a rise in the plain, and there, for the first time, they can see the source of their misery. Mangonels, catapults and scorpions by the score, all of them aimed and tightened to such precision that they can fire with a propulsion the Romans had thought only possible from a divine power. Finally, the mangled and now terrified survivors come within 30 feet of the wall, heaving breaths of relief that they are surely under the range of the mounted monsters, and soon they will be able to scale the parapets and get to grips with the men operating them. But
yeah, I'm about to say, what other trick do the Syracusans have under their belt? You know, it's like, oh, we made it, guys. We got close to the wall. The hard part's over. Like, I'm wondering what other trick they have up their sleeve.
Is not to be. An entirely new wave of arrows ratchets through their armor, cutting, shredding. The fine armor of the Romans seems like little more than flimsy foil. Their officers realize that the entire wall is perforated with dozens, possibly hundreds of killing holes, angled so that they are wide enough for an archer to aim and fire point blank, but virtually impossible for the attacking soldiers to return fire in kind.
Wow, that is so unique. Firing killing holds. Yeah, I haven't heard of that in Siegecraft so far. Basically point blank shooting. Wow, dude. That's insane. Holy crap.
While a very few of the most ardent and fearless get within touching distance of the barrier and attempt to place the ladders, they are quickly inundated by falling boulders and even beams, so many hundreds of libra in weight that surely even a squad of men could not lift them, let alone throw them high in the air. The sight of their comrades flattened beneath such monstrosities, blood and viscera running in the dirt, is too much for even the most robust and sturdy of Roman centurions. Finally, the attack falters, and those still living run back toward the safety of their line, their commanders unwilling to send more men forward into what is certain death.
Wow.
The Syracusans on the wall by the gates erupt in cheers, as do the townspeople behind, who receive news that the Roman attack has been a failure. Meanwhile, in the great harbor, the fleet and the amphibious units are unaware that any of this is
Dang, dude, the Syracusans, man, that's... You know, obviously, I think, yeah, they'd lose at the end, to my knowledge, but... You know, that was a great start. Like, it goes to show you, like, how they took their siegecraft seriously. Like, those weapons and the build-up was amazing. You know, it's like, what's killing them? And then you see just the weaponry they have. And the fact that they beat off the Romans was really impressive, because so far in this series, everyone who isn't Hannibal usually just gets instantly wrecked by the Romans. You know? So, granted, Syracuse, I believe, does fall. But still, at least they're not going down easily, you know, like fodder or jobbers. They're actually putting up a fight. So, again, impressive.
Taking place. They ply the water serenely, proud and deadly, awaiting the moment they can land and unload their lethal force of marines onto the monumental but delicate-looking Greek port. Still, the churning waves of the Ionian Sea lap around their prows, their rams waiting for any Syracusan or Carthaginian ship foolish enough to storm out and engage them. But even out there, hundreds of yards from shore, arrows and missiles begin to fall onto the decks, many of them hitting targets among the unsuspecting sailors and waiting ground forces. The shower becomes a cascade the nearer the ships get to the harbor. Any man with a shield puts it above his head and tries to stay out of harm's way. They watch as arrows and bolts embed themselves in the timbers of the deck. Shouts of pain come from all around as the machines find their mark. Still, the Quinqueremes move forward. Those strangely long arrows, still not enough to stop such powerful craft. Yet as they pass the 200-yard mark from the seawall, the missiles begin to fire straight forward rather than coming from an arcing path high in the air. And they are fired with a power that even weathered sailors have not seen in their many years of breaching coastal strongholds. Worse still, huge boulders and beams, similar to those lobbed at the legionaries underneath the wall at the Hexaplon Gate, lurch from the sky, and the Romans can only watch helplessly to see whether they are going to make a hideous and mortal landing on their own vessel. To their commanders' disbelief and consternation, ships begin to halt, scuppered by gaping holes riven through their decks and hulls. Water rushes.
I love this series. I really love, like I said, I'm a huge Hannibal fan. Hannibal fanable, if you would. But, like, yeah, HistoryMarche just has the best Hannibal series. And, like, just, like, I'm always so excited. Like, I'm on the edge of my seat, like, holy crap, what's gonna happen? Like, you know, like, this is really awesome. I also like he covers everything, not just Hannibal, but, you know, basically the entire Second Punic War. It gives just a good look at everything that's going on. And, yeah, again, like, the boulders and the scorpions, just, like, giving the Romans the work, because, like, on paper, yeah, the Romans were like, we're gonna show up, we're gonna wreck this easily, but they got the Romans, like, freaking floundering, which is amazing, you know?
Is in, immobilizing some of the ships, while dragging others to the bottom. The fusillade is an unprecedented defense, yet the officers and captains aboard the ships grit their teeth and order the signal to advance sounded once more. The majority of the 6 ships reach the harbor, and preparations begin for the landing. The Sambuca are in front, and the men at their head are already priming their own scorpions and missile piles to clear the walls. Just as those on the land side had anticipated finally getting to grips with the enemy, so too do the naval archers and marines holding javelin and bow. What happens next is like something from their nightmares. Without any forewarning, huge arms of timber and metal swing out over the wall, bringing with them fantastic-looking objects tied to their ends. The first of these arms comes to a sharp halt over the deck of a Quinquereme, and the men below look up at it with frantic alarm. From a height several meters over their heads, a gigantic block falls from its grasp, a long chain to which it is attached falling after it. The massive stone slab pulverizes everything it touches, gravity forcing it ever downward with terrifying speed. Men and timbers are rent apart, and the ship quickly disappears beneath the surface.
They literally just forcefully sunk that crap. Holy crap, dude, this siegecraft is amazing. These inventions, this weaponry is outstanding. Frickin' Archimedes, man. He put in the work. Like, wow. It's just amazing. Like, this defense is just amazing. A+, man. The Romans aren't safe getting to the wall. Even when they get to the wall, it's like he thought of everything, you know, the Syracusans, like making not only the way to the walls awful, but even making it worse once they get close with these kind of weapons. It's just like, this defense is amazing.
This ignites a panic as the sailors try to abandon ship, throwing themselves overboard, where the majority sink due to their armor. Others are knocked and killed by collisions with snapping timbers and nearby ships. For the rowers in the lower decks, there is little hope at all. What
Oh,
comes next is worse.
it's gonna suck. Imagine being a rower on the lower deck and this falls on you, like, and and the ship goes down and you drown. Oh, that's such an awful way to go. Like, I just imagined that. I was like, oh my goodness. Oh, that's awful.
The arm from which the block had been dropped suddenly swings around, pulling both the wreckage of the ship and the men still clinging to its splinters up and out of the water. Again, just as happened on the land side, to those watching, it is as if the ship has been lifted up and thrown by the hand of a god.
Wow. Imagine seeing this in person. Like, I'm trying to, like, get a visual perspective. Like, you're just a random soldier, like, right here, and you witness all of this. Like, that's gotta be insane, like, witnessing weaponry of this time. Like, it's advanced, you know? I mean, for this era, thousands of years ago, but this has to be, like, super advanced, right? Through their perspective, and they're gonna be like, holy crap. You know?
This action repeats all along the harbour wall. Archimedes' devices making use of pulleys and counterweights to create forces that a normal man would think impossible, even
but
close
he
to
made it possible. Archimedes' mind, like I said, I've heard of the man. I've heard of some of his inventions, obviously offhandedly. But it's now cool to finally see it all in, like, explained to me, you know? Like, I finally get the hype. Man, I wish I was good at math and science, but, I could be inventing weapons of war! No, I'm joking, but, but, you know what I mean? Like, the dude thought of everything, like, he was out here playing, like, 5D chess, building so many of these, land, sea, just everything, like, he spared no expense. Like, this is so much talent. It's almost a shame he dies. Like, granted, I don't know if he would have even worked for the Romans. I doubt it. But, like, a man this genius to be killed off, it's almost a loss to the world. Like, you know what I mean? Because I do believe I did get the story right. He gets killed by the Romans while he's trying to draw his circles. The Romans, kind of a little bit rude, just wiped him out there. But man, like, that talent and potential, like, a man like that should be kept alive, you know?
witchcraft or some other supernatural force. At the same moment that the Romans believed that the situation cannot get any worse, an enormous claw juts over the harbour. As it moves into position, its shadow looms over the fleet below. Then, it suddenly wrenches a ship completely out of the water.
Oh.
The men either jump or are thrown overboard. Finally, the gigantic contraption tosses the vessel aside.
Holy crap, it's like that, you know when you go to like an arcade and then they have like the stuffed dolls and then you play the claw machine to get you know what I mean? Like, Archimedes was doing that with literal ships. In fact, I think that the claw machine to get like the stuffed dolls was inspired by Archimedes at this point. Like, holy crap. Dude, there's just... I love how he keeps saying, just when you think it can't get worse, somehow Archimedes pulls out a new trap card, like you think, okay, long distance, the scorpion and the boulders, that's pretty bad, but we got to the walls, and then suddenly, these giant, killing holds, and like, stone, I don't know what to call these, stone droppers? I'm just gonna call it a stone dropper. Stone droppers hit you, and then you're thinking, okay, we got through all of that, what now? And then he pulls out the freaking claw machine. I'm thinking of the Toy Story meme, the claw.
Who's in charge here?
You know what I mean? Like, and then it's like, what next? Like, he just keeps pulling out, like, the Romans keep thinking, it can't get any worse, and then Archimedes is like, let me show you my newest invention, like, he just keeps pulling out new trap cards. Holy crap, this is amazing. He might be the most competent ally Hannibal ever had, which is saying a lot, because I've been dissing the pro-Carthaginian side outside of Hannibal, Because the Carthaginians suck, and all their allies suck. They all lose, like, get handed to by the Romans really easily, but Archimedes might be the greatest ally. I mean, ally by proxy, because he's fighting against the Romans, but man, already the best Roman killer outside of Hannibal. Again, a man this talented, the fact he dies the way he does is a shame. Like, I've become an Archimedes fanboy in one video. He just keeps pulling out new crap. What next?
Smashing it against the waves. By now, the Roman Sambuca have been made completely inoperable, and the retreat is sounded. It has been a dark day for the Roman army. Marcellus is faced with a labor that he had been hoping to avoid at the outset of the Syracuse campaign. The city itself has myriad defensive lines stretching out from the initial island heartland on Ortygia, with its citadel holding the causeway that links it with the outlying areas of Acradina, Neapolis, Tyche, and Epipolae. The higher area of Epipolae is protected by the Wall of Dionysius, through which the Romans have already failed to make an incursion. Even the furthest points of the city and this perimeter are guarded by the stout battlements of the fortress of Euryalus. As the summer rolls on, rumors and stories abound by the Roman campfires at night of ships catching flame upon the waves, seemingly spontaneously. Their dry, cracked timbers lit by the sorcery of Archimedes.
Dude, I know, that's what I was talking to you guys about. Like, I heard earlier about him using the sun like a mirror to burn ships. Like, that's what I heard. This is the one I heard about. I'm telling you, yeah, dude, their perspective, Archimedes must be a freaking wizard or something. But no, he's just really good at math and science and siegecraft. He's just that skilled. He's so skilled that the Romans think he must be like a god or something, you know, and using magic. This is amazing, man.
And a contrivance he has constructed using large numbers of mirrors mounted on the walls. Upon consideration of the situation in the city and the island as a whole, Marcellus decides to split his forces and cover both of his objectives at the same time. He leaves Appius with 2/3 of the army and the naval forces to blockade the city, while he moves off with a column to engage the Sicilian cities like Helorus, Megara, and Herbesus that have declared themselves for Hannibal and the Carthaginians. Meanwhile, news of the Roman travails in the face of Syracuse's walls and Archimedes' engines has reached the Carthaginian high command, and in a break with their usual timidity, a new army is dispatched under Himilco to exacerbate the ordeal. Word reaches Marcellus that Himilco has set sail with a force of near 30,000 men, consisting of perhaps 25,000 infantry, 3,000 cavalry, and a dozen elephants. When Himilco lands at Heraclea Manoa and moves toward Agrigentum, his journey to Sicily facilitated by the ever-growing naval forces of the Carthaginian admiral Bomilcar. Word reaches the Syracusans through Appius's loose blockade, and Hippocrates moves out of the city with perhaps 10,000 men to join him, relieving some of the pressure on the city's shrinking supplies. Marcellus moves as quickly as he can to block Himilco from establishing a defensible position at Agrigentum, but the Carthaginian beats him to the punch. Instead, Marcellus runs quite by chance into Hippocrates and annihilates his Syracusans in the field, his men no doubt taking some pleasure in engaging the Syracusans without the mortal dread that they now associate with Archimedes' machines. It's a thumping victory for the Romans. Hippocrates' entire force of 10,000, with the exception of a small band of a few hundred cavalry he flees with to safety, is either cut down by the legion or else put in chains.
Again, open battlefield, everyone except Hannibal loses to the Romans. Yeah, I don't have faith that these guys are actually beating Marcellus on an open battlefield. Like, yeah, they're screwed.
Hippocrates manages to reach sanctuary with Himilco, but Marcellus is unwilling to try his luck against another fortified position, and so he returns to Appius and the main Roman army outside Syracuse. It's possible that he is attempting to lure Himilco to follow him, although this would be a dangerous game when the Carthaginian has a force 2.5 times the size of his own. More likely, Marcellus is hoping to reach his own refuge in the now well-established lines outside Syracuse. The two armies complete the march and then stand face to face. For a time, Marcellus and Appius fear attack from both the city and the army outside, but Himilco's assault never transpires, and instead he withdraws anticlimactically to Agrigentum for winter quarters. The new year and the new campaign season brings bad tidings for the Roman cause, not only because Syracuse still stands defiant, nearly a full 12 months since the first attack that saw the destruction of so many centuries of the legions and ships of the line. Tarentum in South Italy, like Syracuse, has thrown off its commitments to Rome and now sided with Hannibal. And with the successors of Alexander the Great in the still powerful state of Macedon already allied with Hannibal, Carthage could potentially use the ports of Syracuse and Tarentum to threaten the Roman control of the sea, even possibly allowing for the landing of a Macedonian army in Italy to aid Hannibal. This would be a nightmare scenario for the Romans, and Marcellus is hard-pressed to allow the situation to continue. Nevertheless, Archimedes and the inspired Syracusan defenses make the capture of the city seem an impossibility. The blockade to force starvation is not working either, as both Hippocrates has been able to move out of the city by land, and Bomilcar is able to reach the port by sea. Another legion arrives to reinforce the besieging army, bringing Marcellus's force up to possibly 4 legions in total, along with an equivalent number of auxiliaries and allied forces, 20,000 men or more. But the almost certain death toll from another attempt at storming the walls is the problem to which he has no solution. Bread is rationed within the walls, but Syracuse seems to still be far from real hunger. Marcellus must act. The plan that bears fruition comes from a hunch he has that the weak point of the Syracusan defense is located near a tower called Galliagra. An arranged meeting on the exchange of prisoners with a party of Syracusan officials near the tower provides one of Marcellus's officers with the opportunity to reconnoiter the spot and count the number of blocks in the wall. From this, Marcellus calculates the height of the defenses and has his men build ladders of an appropriate length to scale them. Compared to the genius and complexity of Archimedes' wizardry, it is laughably simple stuff, but the Syracusans are not laughing when on the 3rd day of a drunken festival thrown to lighten the mood among the besieged populace, legionaries scale the wall near the Galliagra Tower in the dead of night.
Wow, sometimes the most complex problems require the simplest of solutions. But again, like, how many times have we seen that in this series? Like a group will, a besieged city will have a drunken festival, and that's when the enemy attacks. Yeah, maybe having drunken festivals during sieges ain't a good idea. But, again, so simple. Marcellus was literally put in such a hard situation, seemed seemingly impossible, right? The contraptions of Archimedes were just so powerful, and yet just by building ladders, Marcellus has overcome the odds. Like, it's amazing. It's just a simple solution on paper. Like, what? We're just gonna build a ladder? Like, but it worked. And obviously it's the timing too. The Romans struck at the best time, it seems. So, again, wow. GG, man.
And butcher the unwary guards like animals. Syracuse and its leaders awake at dawn to find that an elite Roman unit has opened a hexaplon gate, leaving the bodies in the towers stacked high, and upwards of an entire legion is now streaming into the city. This onrushing force brushes aside Epicides' attempts to repel it with all the momentum of an army that has waited long months for such an opportunity, and in the aftermath, most of the city, including the fort at Euryalus, falls.
Wow.
The only exceptions are Acradina, the harbours, and Ortygia. Epicides and Hippocrates take what is left of their army and hole up in these sectors. All hope is not lost yet, for salvation might be on the horizon. Hippocrates escapes the rattled and desperate city, and when he returns some weeks later, he is riding alongside Himilco and his army, who have arrived to lift the siege. Marcellus and Appius turn the great part of their force to face this new threat, now in a worse state than they were when Himilco last threatened their positions, for they are strung out between their former camp and the new positions within the city.
So, if the trend holds well, Himilco's about to get his butt kicked by the Romans. I don't know anything about this guy, but I do know Marcellus, and Marcellus is one of the MVPs of the Roman side. So I predict that he's about to kick the crap out of Himilco. I could be wrong, but looking at Carthage's track record in pitched battles against the Romans, I don't think I am, but again, maybe I just might be wrong this time.
Himilco sends out skirmishers to find the vulnerable point in the Roman line, and Marcellus's own troops engage them across the broad front of Syracuse plains and rises. All seem set up for a battle of monumental proportions amidst the walls, towers, and temples of the city, as well as in the fields and laneways outside. But then Rome is once more gifted by the hand of fortune, and disease breaks out in Himilco's camp. The same sickness travels to the Roman environs over the next months, but the well-ordered Roman castra, as well as their diffused positions in the city, reduce its deleterious effects amongst the legionaries. In Himilco's ranks, the disease takes on the proportions of a plague, likely aided by their proximity to the marshes of the Anapo River, and he, along with Hippocrates, die in its virulent passage. The remainder of the Carthaginians are forced to withdraw, to the dread and distress of the watching Syracusans. No sooner have their seeming saviors abandoned the field than their spirits are lifted once more, however, for Bomilcar, the Carthaginian admiral of its now once more formidable...
Well, that happened. Freaking battle here it happened, but still the Carthaginians lost in terms that they couldn't withstand. Oh boy.
Navy arrives in sight of the city. It is now approaching the end of the year, and the defenders and the Carthaginians know that the Romans will act soon to avoid another winter camped outside the walls. The buffeted and battered Syracusans gawp and cry out with joy at Bomilcar's massive fleet of 150 warships and 700 merchantmen. The Roman fleet has been reinforced to 100 ships since the disastrous attempt to storm the Great Harbour the previous year, but it cannot hope to withstand such an array of power, 1.5 times its size. Their commander decides to do something completely audacious. A storm that whips in to delay Bomilcar's armada gives Marcellus time to draw up his forces on the far side of the Pacinum Cape, and then he brazenly drives his fleet forward in a direct line to Bomilcar's position. For a long time, the Romans watched the motionless Carthaginian ships as their own hulls cut through the foamy waves and the wind whips at their rears. But then Bomilcar's ships turn and withdraw. The Carthaginian admiral has blinked, and he moves with his warships toward Tarentum while the transports are sent back to Carthage. Marcellus turns his attentions back to the bereft and abandoned Syracusans, and it is said that those closest observe him weeping at the fate that now awaits their great city. With infighting and dissent now...
Yeah. I know I'm really mean towards the Carthaginians, you know. Can you blame me? I'm always like making fun of them and like, oh, you guys suck. It's like, come on, guys. Come on. Even when on paper things are going well for them and they can win, they somehow... The Carthaginians, more than anyone I've seen from all the videos we've covered, all 400 plus videos we've seen on this channel, no one can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory as well as Carthage at certain times. Like, other than Hannibal, I don't really like Carthage. Like, Hannibal's the only person I like from the Carthaginian side. He's the only one I'm rooting for. I'm not rooting for Carthage. I'm rooting for Hannibal. I've said that plenty of times before. I'm gonna say that plenty of times forever. For as long as the series goes. Like, man, Syracuse got screwed over. They're like, man, maybe we should have sided with the Romans.
Rampant within the remaining walls, offers of assistance come to the Roman commander's hearing, and it is an Iberian mercenary named Mauricus and a Syracusan coppersmith called Sossus who open the gates of Ortygia and Acradina for the legions when the final attack begins. The fighting is swift and brutal, the pent-up aggression of men who have endured a full year and a half of frustration and defeat let loose like a torrent, and the sack that follows is more violent still. Countless artworks, treasures, and former citizens now turned slaves are hauled from the burning streets. The great towers of a once shining city, now merely blackened shells. In spite of Marcellus's warnings, Archimedes dies in the pillage, seemingly because he was not quick enough to follow the orders of a sword-happy legionary. Sicily is strategically secure for the Roman cause, but perhaps even more significantly for that city's long-term culture, the gargantuan collection of artworks looted from Syracuse's fine houses and palaces turn heads in a new appreciation for Greek genius in austere and frugal Rome. This discovery will change Rome far more than any military victory, but for the meantime...
Yeah, it's often been said that the Romans conquered the Greeks, but the Greeks conquered the Romans. Or that, you know, they captured their captors. And it's mainly because the Romans were heavily inspired by Greek culture, you know? So that's interesting. And how could you not? After seeing what Archimedes did, Archimedes be like, man, these guys are kind of cool. Like, you know. Archimedes, man, he carried. He was the best... the best anti-Roman, the best enemy of Rome in this era, outside of Hannibal. Like, Archimedes carried so hard, you know? It's a shame he went out, because a man that genius, I think, could have given more. Granted, he seemed old already, but, I don't know. It's just that kind of genius just going away seems, I don't know, a little, like, tragic, you know?
There is the matter of Hannibal, his continued existence in Italy, as well as the matter of Macedon. Syracuse is a tremendous addition to Rome's growing imperium, but the war is not over yet. If you like what you see, consider supporting my work on Patreon.
Alright, time to read the 2 footnotes. Syracuse was a thorn in Rome's side that could not be ignored due to its strategic importance. Its capture was a bitter blow for Hannibal, as Rome could redirect significant resources in manpower, ships, provisions, and commanders to other theaters. Hannibal would feel the brunt of this massive shift. Furthermore, the capture of Syracuse by Rome marked the end of independence of Greek cities in southern Italy and Sicily. Marcellus considered Archimedes a valuable asset in order that he should not be harmed. He was greatly angered by his killing. Oh my goodness. Of course, what's the saying? Real recognizes real? Marcellus was like, this man, he needs to live. Like, that's what I've been saying the whole time. A man this genius could not be underutilized, but that one freaking random Roman soldier's like, you know what, I hate this guy drawing circles. Just stabs him. Okay, he was greatly angered by his killing, rightfully so. Archimedes' death at the hands of a soldier who was either impatient or wanted to steal his instruments, thinking they were valuable, stripped Rome of the opportunity to harness Archimedes' knowledge for their war aims. Honestly, the man would have been an asset. Assuming he joined Rome. Archimedes' works were written in Doric Greek, the dialect of ancient Syracuse. Much of his work did not survive, and its only extent is edited fragments. At least 7 of his treatises are known to have existed. Wow. Lost knowledge there. Any more? Okay, so yeah, another great video that had me on the edge of my seat. That was so great to learn about. Rip Archimedes, you carried hard. No one put that much dread in the Romans other than Hannibal. That was amazing. And the man carried. So I'm gonna end the video here. This was another brilliant part of Hannibal. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye everyone.